Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Dan. And today I'm going to be reviewing a Japanese sci-fi film titled Evil Brain from Outer Space. Yep, I'm going to review one of these obscured sci-fi films once again, folks, because I really do like watching these kinds of movies. So I figured I would do this because I want to review more of these movies. So of course, as usual, I want to talk about the plot. So let's get into it, shall we? Yes, sir. So pretty much, yeah, like the title suggests, there was this evil brain from outer space. Of course, this monstrosity evil brain from outer space lands his minions on a particular course to conquer the universe in his own way, of course, and unleashes hideous monsters on Earth that spreads deadly diseases. However, the character, the superhero, Starman, must rescue planet Earth from the menace of the evil brain, while fighting off the armies of these particular creatures, these monsters that the evil brain had sent against him. So, of course, he does attempt to be the good guy here, and he does what he has to do in order to protect the innocents' lives. So, because he does believe that peace and order can be around the people of Earth, however, he must fight and rescue everyone, of course. And yeah, of course, he does have his own disguise, of course. He disguises himself as a human so he can blend in with society, so no one would expect that he himself is an alien, a good guy alien from outer space. Of course, kind of reminds me of the typical superhero stuff. You might expect like Superman, Wonder Woman, and whatnot, having their superhero identities separate from the hero identities. So I guess if you're familiar with that kind of a thing, folks, the same kind of a thing is applied here. And I can say that this film was definitely worth watching, folks. I liked it in some ways. I mean, it could have been better than what it was. Some of the editing was a bit choppy at times, but still, folks, it does have its own charm. I've seen far worse. I mean, granted, I've seen far better as well, but I didn't hate this film. It's pretty standard good guy versus bad guy kind of a thing. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I guess in some ways it depends how it's done, folks, I guess you can say. I've seen this film with The Amazing Maddie, so Amazing Maddie, and if you're watching this review right now, I highly appreciate the fact that you watched this film with me, folks. Oh yes, so this film was definitely worth watching. Now keep in mind, this is the American version I'm reviewing, folks. Have not got my hands on the Japanese version of this movie. So, but I'm just reviewing the Japanese version. As far as I'm concerned, this is the only one I can find. This is really was hard to find in a lot of ways, folks. Just please keep that in mind. Oh yeah, the character Starman, even though he was not born of this planet, he does want to save everybody, of course. The actor who plays Starman does a pretty solid job. And as for everybody else, they do a pretty okay job. This film may not win any awards for acting, of course, but still, it's pretty solid film. I'm glad I picked this up, folks. I'll say that. Just give this film a shot if you haven't seen it already. Yeah, in some ways, this film is actually rather campy. The special effects do not hold up to today's standards of special effects, but in some ways, that kind of brings the film into its own charm. The people behind this film have to work with what they have. It's really, really low budget, but I do think that's a good thing, folks. I like the scenery in this, folks. I do like how this was put together. Even if again some of the editing in this came out rather choppy, but yeah, this is a really old sci-fi movie that I can watch again and again. I've seen it quite a few times. I'm trying to find these special editions of these movies, but they're really difficult to find. Well, I guess I'll come across more of these types of movies as I continue, of course. And in some ways, this did come out better than I expected. And yeah, of course, the fight scenes continue off in various stages. I did like the idea of having these characters, the superhero characters, fighting these alien type monsters in various fight scenes, and I thought it was pretty cool. And I mean, the costumes do look a little hokey, I guess you can say. And the dubbed dialogue, it's really corny and really silly. But I can't blame the film for too much, really, folks, because again, this is the American version of the film, folks. And So yeah, at the end of the day, I did enjoy it, folks. So I say this film is definitely worth watching if you're one of those people that are willing to have an open mind to certain things. This film did what come from a different culture, of course. So just keep that in mind as well. Obviously, can't say anything particularly bad about this film except maybe for the dubbing. The dubbing wasn't particularly good, really, folks. But yeah, this film in some ways was geared to the family in some ways. But yeah, of course the main hero has to take down the bad guys. So of course we have to see lots of fight scenes going on. Yeah, the fight scenes themselves are pretty crazy. But on Earth, there's some guys who have some wild wind of evasion, and he even manages to steal the brain before being mistakenly caught by the police and dropping the brain, which is in a suitcase by the way, into the river. And the guy's boss is one of the bad guy mutants, along with his one-legged sidekick and an owl. Yeah, that seems kind of bizarre, I know. Whom have a secret passageway, which by the way is this garden kind of area, and that leads to their underground lair, of course. And of course, I guess in some ways that's pretty typical to have a lair for the bad guys. Yeah, but I guess in some ways this film is pretty crazy in its own way. There's some bizarre looking aliens, but that I don't mind that really. I do think that this film that can come off rather adventurous in its own little way. Which of course is fun. This is like a fantasy kind of a movie, sci-fi kind of a thing. So when it comes to these kinds of films, this kind of a thing is of course to be expected. So if anything, folks, I will give this, and of course I will do my best to find the uncut Japanese versions of these films. Anyway, Evil Brain from Outer Space gets an overall rating of a 6.2 out of 10. Naked, it's a 6.2 out of 10 for me because, well, it ain't the worst, so I did quite enjoy it, folks. Of course, as always, thanks for watching and take care. See ya.